Hello. Okay. So in today's session, we are going to discuss about CA server. Okay, or certificate authority server, which is an important part of your Fabric network. Okay, we'll see how to configure CA and how to use CA to generate the enrollment certificates. Okay, so before we set up the CA in the virtual machine, let's first understand how CA works. Okay, so in Fabric network, we will have a component or entity that we called CA server. Okay, that we call CA server. So this is my CA server or certificate authority server, and this is the client, external client who want to do transaction to your network. Okay, and then we will have organization, and organization will contain your peers, right? And then we will have orderer. Okay, as we discussed in previous session, that we can use crypto gen tool to generate the cryptographic materials for all the components in our Fabric network. Okay, so we understand how we use that tool, and how we can configure the crypto config file to generate those certificates, right? And we also understand what is the MSPs, and how that tool create different MSP, and what is the meaning of those MSP, right? And if you remember in yesterday's session, I also explained you that crypto generate tool has created a CA folder under each organization. For each organization, it creates one CA folder. That CA folder contains public private key, actually one private key and one self-signed certificate, right? So after generating the cryptographic material first time, when you are starting or setting up your infrastructure, you will provide that private key and self-signed certificate to CA, so that your CA server use that certificate, self-signed certificate, and the private key to sign other enrollment certificates, right? So that is the one approach, right? And that is, this is very important for you to understand, because we can use uh, MSPs that has been generated by your crypto gen tool to create the genesis block and the channel transaction block, right? And genesis block will contain the organization label MSPs, right? So, and your orderer will use that MSP to validate the identity of entities and the signature of the transaction, right? Now, your organization label MSP, because contains certificate which is signed by the CA certificate, right, which is generated by the cryptogen tool. So you have to use same certificate in the CA server, right? Otherwise, if you don't use it, if you do not use that, and you generate the genesis block, right, with the certificate that that has created by the cryptogen tool, but you start the CA server with different certificate, or the new certificate that your CA server creates when you start it first time, then your orderer will not have the root certificate of this new CA server, right? So it will not able to, your orderer will not able to authenticate and verify the signatures, right? So uh, this is important, right? So you have to understand it. Okay, so either you first set up the CA, and then using this certificate authority server, CA server, you generate all other certificate which is required in your organization, which is required for your organization, right? Like your admin cert, your uh, peer certs, and then your orderer cert, right? This is the first thing you can do that. uh, but if you are not doing this and you are using the cryptogen tool to generate the certificate, then you have to configure the certificate which is in the CA folder, right, in the authority server, so that new enrollment certificate gets signed by the same CA root certificate. Okay, so now let's understand about the CA server. Okay, so basically, CA server is certificate authority server that is responsible to provide all the cryptographic material, and and to provide the enrollment certificates. Okay, uh, when you first time start the CA server, right, it creates a configuration file, and it also creates a private key and a self-signed certificate, or that we call the root CA certificate. Okay, and but if you have provided predefined private key and self-signed certificate, or the uh, root certificate, then your CA server will not generate the new self-signed certificate. It can use the existing one. Okay, uh, when your client want to connect to, or want to do a transaction, he connects to CA server to get the enrollment certificate. Okay, now this process actually has two steps. Okay, so what happens, so your client is, say, suppose outside of your organization. So what you will do, and because you want this external client to do to do transaction to your system, what you have to do is you have to create a user ID for this client. Okay, so you will log into the CA server. Okay, either by some program, or using the Fabric CA client command line utility. Okay, you will log into CA server, right, and then you will register a user. Say suppose that user that you are registering is XYZ. Okay, say suppose it is XYZ. So you will register this user in the Fabric CA server. Okay, once you register it, it will give you a password. Okay, that we call the secret key. Okay, you provide that username and the secret key, or one and we can configure in the CA server that how many times a particular password that has been generated for a user can be used, how many times it can be used. Okay, so you provide that secret key and the password to the client. Your client connects to CA server using that one time password and the username, and it gets a enrollment certificate. Okay, your client has to save that enrollment certificate, which is nothing but a public key and a self-signed certificate that is signed by the CS root certificate. Okay, private key and the certificate that is signed by CS root certificate. Okay, your client has to save that these two certificates for future use. Okay, now using these two certificates that we call the enrollment certificates, he can do the transaction to your blockchain infrastructure. Okay, and we call this certificate that your client has get from the CS server as a enrollment certificate or e-cert. Okay, so this is how things work. So this has two process. One is the register and other is the enrollment. Okay, so we register a user. When we register a user, we define the role, what role this user has, whether this user is a normal user, whether or it's a client or it's a peer or it's a validator or it's orderer, right? So we define a role. Okay, and beside that, okay, we can also define some attributes while generating these certificate or while generating the creating the enrollment, or sorry, creating registering this user. Okay, so attributes are when your client gets the enrollment certificate, right? These values of attribute get attached in the certificate. Okay, they become the part of the certificate. Okay, now so when you will when the client will do any transaction to the your infrastructure, or it will send a transaction to the chain code, right? In the chain code you can write some code to read those attributes. Okay, and based on the values of those attributes on in your chain code you can make some decisions. Okay, so the point is, while registering the user, you can define the role of the user and the few attributes, right? And when enrollment certificate is generated, those that role and the attributes become the part of certificate. Okay, so that is the another important point. Okay, so let's see how this works in practical. Okay, so this is a Docker Composer file. Okay, where I have defined my CA server configuration. Okay, this Docker file right now contains only one Docker definition. Okay, and that is for the CA server. So let me give you some details about this file, Docker file. Uh, so at the top, I have this is basically name of your Docker. Okay, or the name of the service, I will say. Okay, so and it can be anything, whatever make more sense to you, you can write it. Okay, it can be anything. So this is the Docker service name. Okay, second, image, right? So which image I want to use to start this container. Okay, so this is the image which I want to use, so this is the name of the image. Okay, then your service, your contain when you will start this run this the composer, right? Your container will start and your container will be running some services, and those services will be running on some port, right? Now if you want to, so it will be something like this. You have a container, right? And in this container you have, say suppose you have a server which is running on port number 80, right? Now this port number 80 is opened inside this container, right? But if I want to send a request from my host, okay, from my host to then I will not able to do it, right? Because this port number 80 is open inside this container, right? So to make this service available to the host system, we actually do the port mapping, right? So here we have done the port mapping, right? So the port number con- uh, uh, containers port, I'm mapping the port number of my Docker container to the host system, right? So 7050 is the port on which Fabric CS server will start, but this port will be open inside the container, okay, in the container, right? So I'm mapping the same port, this port, to this port on your Unix machine, okay, on the Unix host, so that I send so that I could connect to this Fabric server on this port, right? So this port will be open 705 7054 port will be available on the Unix host, okay, by doing this, right? So this is the port mapping, mapping the port from your container to host. Then this is your environment variable section. So I hope you are familiar with the environment variables, right? So this is the way to define the environment variables in the Docker Composer, okay? And these environment variables will be available to your container, okay, a Docker container. So here I have Fabric CS server home, Fabric CS server client home, and then this is the log label of your server. So I have used debug because I want to see how my server is working. Then Fabric CS server CA name, and so, and this is uh, uh, your CA server name, right? And it can be anything, okay? And this is your home directory or server home directory, right? Next, volume, okay. So volume is another section in the Docker Composer through which we can map a local directory to the to a directory inside the Docker container, okay, inside the Docker container. So here I'm mapping this local directory to this folder in your container, okay. So when container will start, it will have this directory, it will have this folder. I'm mapping this folder to this local folder, okay. So whatever files will be placed by your server on this directory inside the container, right, it will be available for me to use in this local folder. So this is how we do the uh, local directory mapping or the uh, directory mounting, right? Then we have command. uh, Command is another keyword in the Docker Composer, sorry, through which you can run a, which actually tells your Docker container that which command it need to run once container is up, or a container starts, then what command it need to run. So we are saying sh -c is the command, and we need to run this command. So this is the command to start the server. Fabric CA server start, and this is the bootstrap user ID password. Okay, so Fabric CA server have default user ID as an admin, and this is the default password. Okay, -d means bootstrap user credentials. Okay, and again, you can configure your Fabric CA server to use the LDAP in your company, in your organization. And if you use the LDAP, then you don't need to provide this user credential here. Okay, so this is the detail of this composer file. Now I will go ahead and start this. Okay, to start uh, Docker Composer, we have to use command called Docker compose up. Right. So Fabric CA server has been started, and you can see here uh, uh, you can read these logs, and it clearly indicates that uh, if you see here, this is the configuration file that your CA server has created, and I will explain you about this configuration file, right? And the home directory is this, and serial number, and if you see here, it says CA key and the certificate was generated for the CA, and the name of the server is this FC CA. Okay, and certificate has been placed on this server, on this location, right? Now the reason is that why your CA server has generated this certificate, because uh, if you do not provide uh, private key and the root certificate to CA server, it generates by itself. Okay, and so it has generated. But if you provide private key and the CS root certificate, then it does not generate the self-signed certificate for you. Okay. Okay. So if you remember, so my certificates is in, and the configuration file is in etc hyperledger fabric CA server, right? And if you see here, I have mapped this container folder to my local folder on this directory. Hmm. So now let's go here, Fabric CA server. So these are the files that has been generated by your uh, CA server. Okay, this is the configuration file, this is the certificate, and this is the private key. All right. Right. Okay, so let me stop this for a second. Hmm. And okay, see, this is the configuration file, right? Now uh, this configuration file is automatically created by CA server if you do not provide it. Okay, and this file right currently has default configuration, right? So if you want to update anything, you want to make any changes, you can make that change in this configuration file. Okay, fabric cs server hyphen config.yaml file. Okay, in this file you can update the parameters, change the parameters to configure your cs server. Okay, now it has few important things that I will discuss. So here is the port number, right? If you want to run your CS server on different port, you can configure here. Debug is false, but here it is false, but uh, in my Docker file, I have changed it to debug. Okay. Now this is the different variable. I have set up different variable. Anyways. So actually, and these, I mean, there is a way actually to read these environment variables, or to connect or link these environment variables to this file. Okay, we will discuss that sometime later. And CA key file certificate cert file. So this is name of your key file. This is the name of your certificate file. If you want to change it, you can change it here. Okay, see here name, right? Fabric CS server name. Okay, Fabric CS server is the name of this file. Okay, this CA is this CA here. Okay, so these all these parameters, right, that you see in this file, everything can be overwritten through the environment variable in the Docker Composer. Okay, and how it can be overridden? See, Fabric CS server is the name of this file, and after that underscore CA. CA means this element in this file. After that underscore name. So this element. So I'm overriding the value of name using this environment variable. Okay, I can give some name here as well. But if you write some name, say suppose test CA. Okay, this name will be overridden by this environment variable. But this name is same as this name in this file. Okay, why? Because under in this file fabric cs server, so this is your fabric cs server underscore ca means root tag, root element, and then underscore name means variable inside the ca element, so this element. Okay, if I want to override this variable, then I have to say fabric cs server underscore ca underscore key file. So you can override all these variables. Say suppose you want to override this variable, so how you will do, how we will override fabric cs server fabric underscore ca underscore server underscore clr underscore expiry. Okay, so if you can override this variable through environment variable like this. Okay, so uh, let me just write it down for you to better understand. Okay, and remember, you have to write all these elements, okay, in the same line. Do not use tab. I have explained you in the previous session also. Okay, and if you make it like this, right, then it will be wrong because you change the hierarchy. Okay, and if you make it like this, right, then it means this element Okay, this element become child of this element, right? We don't want to do that, so do not do this. So if we want to override or we want to access this variable here, so we have to write here clr underscore, what was that, expiry, and then you can write whatever value you want, right? So this is how we write override or access uh, parameters of different configuration files in the Docker uh, in the Docker Composer through environment variable. Okay, registry. Okay, so this section has registration detail of your default user, and your default user is admin, means registration detail of admin user. Okay, so name is admin, password is this. Okay, and there is one more important field which is this, which is like your max enrollments. Okay, I just now explain you, right? uh, you register a user and then you get a secret password, right? Now, how many times this secret password can be used to get the enrollment certificate or to enroll the user, right? That is controlled by this parameter. -1 means it can be enrolled any number of times. But if you want to put a restriction for the enrollment of all the registered users on this CS server, then you can update this parameter, okay, based on your requirements. If you say suppose 1, then your secret password can be used only and only once. If 2 means it can be used only twice. Okay, so you change these value based on your requirement, right? Then we have another parameter here called the affiliation. Okay, each certificate is affiliated with a organization, right? So if you want to tie your certificate with organizations, because that provide another level of security check, right? Then you can specify the organization name and organization structure here. Okay, now remember one thing. Say suppose you have an admin user which is registered, which is affiliated with the uh, a.b, right? So ebay dot retail. Okay, it is affiliated with this department in your, this admin user is admin user is affiliated with the ebay dot retail uh, group. Okay, then you can use this admin user to register only users that belongs to this affiliation, this group. Okay, it can register a user which may be like this, a and a, which is your ebay. Okay, a dot retail, it can register a user, new user with for this affiliation as well, right? But it cannot, this admin cannot register a new user that will be affiliated with this a dot b dot c. No, it cannot do that. Okay, so this is your affiliation. Max enrollment, which is -1, and this is your attributes. Okay, so attributes, as I explained you, these are the attributes that you can define for every user, and these attributes become the part of your certificate. And this certificate, because go with the transaction to the chain code can read these attributes and make some decisions based on these attributes. Okay, so role is like an attribute. Okay, so you can define what is the role of your user, that the new user that you're going to register. Okay, so you can say client, you can say user, peer, validator, or auditor. Okay, now remember one thing, here we have all the roles specified here, right? And the reason behind that is because this is admin. Okay, and when you register a new user, there is one more rule or one more validation happens. Okay, and that validation is, if you have a user who has this role, right, client and user, then admin user can register new user only with these two role. Okay, admin user cannot register a new user with a validator role or with a auditor role. Okay, so regist registrar can register new user with the same role that it himself has, or less roles, but it cannot register new user with higher role or with more role which it does not have. Okay, so this is the one point that you need to remember. And then there are the other thing that you can look. This is for we can skip this right now. Mm, okay, so here is another thing, signing. Okay, this is the use of your certificate, how your certificate can be used, and here is your CSR. Okay, so if you want to customize your CSR, okay, you want to use the you want to use your company name, you common name, some different country name, state name, and your organization names, and other things, right? Then you can configure those details in this CSR section, in this configuration file. Okay, so in this configuration file, in this CSR section, you can configure the certificate details. You can update the certificate details right here. Okay, okay, so that's it. It has other details also, which we can look at, but we'll do some other time. Okay, so this is the configuration file. This is the root certificate. Go to the MSP key store, and this is your uh, server private key. Okay, now let me start this server again. CS server. Okay, if you see this time, it says CA key and certificate already exist. Okay, it says CA key and the certificate already exist. It means it's already exist. This time your CA server did not create new self-signed certificate. It does not create new self-signed certificate, right? So yeah, this is how it works. Got it? Uh, okay, so my CA server is running. Okay, now let's see how we can create a new user, or how we can register a new user on the CA server. Now, so to do that, I will open another terminal, and now I have to go inside this container. Docker ps. Okay, so you can see we have one container running on this system currently. Okay, now to go inside a running Docker container, we have to use a command, and that command is docker execute minus it container name bash. Okay, so here is your, now we are inside the Fabric CA server uh, container. Okay, and now I'm going to, so I'm inside this container today to register a new user. Okay, I want to register a new user. Now to register a new user, we have a command that we have to execute. Okay, you have to execute that command to register a new user. Okay, but before registering a new user, right, you have to, you need you need to, you need a registrar. Okay, you need a user with which you will register the new user. I mean, if you want to create a new user, you have to first authenticate yourself, right? So same thing here. So currently, if you see, this CS server does not have any user, right? It does not have any user, but it has only one user, right? Which is admin user. So admin user is registered, which is default user in this CS server. Okay, but it is only registered. So now we have to first enroll the admin user. Okay, and after enrolling the admin user, okay, we can use admin users credentials to register new users. Okay, so let's see how to register admin I mean the, before registering or creating the new user, let's see how to enroll the admin user. To enroll the admin user, we have to run this command. Okay, so enrollment CA client is the CLI command to access the client part of your in the CA server. Okay, enroll is the switch for the enrollment Fabric CA server client command to enroll a user, which is the user which is already registered. Minus u http. This is the, oh sorry, this is your, you can see here, this is your username admin. Okay, colon, then password, right, at and then the host name where your CS server is running. In my case, it will be localhost because I'm inside the CS server Docker container, and this is the port number on which your CS server is running. Click on enter. Okay, you can see here admin user has been enrolled successfully, and as a result of which CS server has created uh, CS server has created MSP and the required certificates. Okay, and that certificates an MSP has been placed in the Fabric CA client server. Okay, why Fabric CA client server? Because in the environment variable we have set Fabric CA client directory as the home directory for the Fabric CA client home. Fabric CA client. Okay, and this was set with the environment variable Fabric CA client home. Okay. Okay. So. Hmm. Okay, let's go, and in this Docker file you can see that Fabric CA client Docker container directory is also mapped to one of the local folder, which is Fabric CA client inside the volumes inside the Jayaprakash home. So I will go here. Hmm, Here is my Fabric CA client. Okay, you can see here, this is the configuration file for your client for admin user. Okay, I'm not able to see anything in the MSP because this is created by the admin user. See, this is MSP. This is the private key of your admin user. This is um, certificate, and this is the CA cert. Okay, this is the CA cert. Okay, now if you go here, this is MSP, right? Admin users. This is the private key of admin user. This is a certificate, and this certificate is signed by your root CA certificate, right? And this is what? This is the your certificate authorities root certificate, right? And if you see this, if you open this, right? This is the CS server certificate, right? Come over here. I'll show you one thing. CA server, right? This was the root CA certificate. Hmm. Of your CS server, not the this is not the certificate of admin user. This is the root CS certificate of your CS server. Okay, open this. Do you see? This is same. Yeah, this is same because it has to be same. Got it? Okay. And if you want to make any configuration change, you can do that configuration change over here. And if you run this command again, uh, enrollment command again, this time your client will use this configuration to generate the new enrollment certificate. What kind of configuration you can do? I mean, you can just change the CSR values. Okay, and remember one thing here. One thing is important. If you change these parameters, your um, uh, common name in the CSR should be your entity name. Okay, because this is used by other components in your Fabric network. This is URL. This is MSP directory. So if you want to change few things here, you can do that. Okay. Now let's go ahead and register a new user, because now I have an enrolled user. So with the help of that user, enrolled user, which is admin, I can create I can create or I can register new users. Okay, to register a new user, we have to run this command. Okay, Fabric CA client register. Okay, minus d minus minus id name. Then this is the name of your user. Okay, minus minus id affiliation. You can write the affiliation of this particular user on this parameter, and then you have attribute section, in which attribute you can write the attribute that you want to associate with this user. Okay, and that's it. Okay, press enter. Once you press enter, it will basically register user, uh, that user, what was the name of user, abc user. Okay, so it has registered abc user, and here is your password, secret key. Okay, secret key or secret password. This is your secret password. Now in real world scenario, what will happen, you will give this user id, okay, and password to your remote client. Okay, and then they will do the enrollment. Okay, when they will do the enrollment, they will get a private key and a CA sign certificate. Okay, and how they can do it, I mean, either they can use the Fabric CA client command line utility, the way we are doing right now, or they can use the some programming API, right, like the one I'm going to show you here. Okay, so say suppose you provide this username and the password to your client. He will feed that user id password in this in his program, and this program is very straightforward. I mean, it has nothing much to explain, right? So first I have created the Fabric CA client instance using the one of the factory method, right? And this method takes name of the CA, okay, and the host name or the URL where your Fabric CA server is running, and then the property class object, right? And in this, I mean, I haven't set any property, but we have option to configure or set some properties. Okay, and these properties are these properties, right? So you can configure these properties in the programming interface as well. Okay, then this is your crypto configuration that your Fabric CA objects need. So by default, we use this crypto primitive class for a default crypto configuration. But if you want, you can change other crypto configurations as well, right? But you have to do some R&D for that. Okay, and then on the Fabric CA client object, we call this enroll method. Okay, in the enroll method, we have to pass the user id and the password, enrollment password. Okay, so if this call to this method is successful, then it returns enrollment object. Okay, and then from that enrollment object, we can get our certificate and the private key. Okay, now your user has to save this certificate and password. Okay, he has to save this certificate and this private key for future use. He has to use this he has to use this certificate to communicate with your Fabric network. Like if you remember, uh, sorry, we had this class, right, that was responsible to send a transaction, that was creating a transaction proposal, and it was sending to peer, right? We saw in our previous session. So this program uses a enrollment certificate, right? So currently, if you see here, I'm using admin user certificates, right, which is actually not right. Okay, there are few activities where you have to have used the admin certificates, right? Uh, like to create the channel, or to join the channel, okay, or to deploy a chain code. But to initiate a transaction, you don't need actually admin certificate. Actually, we should be using one of these enrollment certificate. Okay, so I will, or your user actually has to save these two certificates. Okay, and then when it initiates a transaction proposal, he has to use certificate that he get from the enrollment for the signing the transaction proposal, or to communicate with the Fabric network. Okay, so this is how it need to be, how it should work. Okay, so let me run this once. See, this is a certificate and this is your private key. Okay, so this is how things work end to end, right? But if you want, right, in from the command line also, you can enroll it, uh, you can enroll a user. Okay, and how you will do that, how you will do this, let's run this command. Okay, so now why I run this command, because I want to use different different CS server client home directory, right? If I don't change this, then what will happen? Current CA client home is this, right? Fabric and hyphen CA hyphen client, which means this directory, right? And this directory currently contains the enrollment details or enrollment certificate of admin. If I do not update my Fabric CA client home directory, then admin's enrollment certificate will be overridden. So that is the only reason we updated Fabric CA client home, so that my new enrollment certificate saves in a different directory. Hmm? Now next, run the enrollment command, and this enrollment command is same as it was for the admin user. Okay, come over here. See, you have now client folder. If you go inside this client folder, this is your configuration file, and you can pass these configuration to the property object in the Java. Okay, your MSP folder here, and you do not see here because we do not have permission. See, you have root CA certificate, private key, signing certificate, TLS certificate. Okay, and we call this certificate as the enrollment certificate. Now you understand that how Fabric CA Server works, and two ways to enroll any client. Okay, so anything else left for CA Server? For now, to start with, no. Okay, that's it for today's session.